Good afternoon. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive. It is Friday, September 3rd. I'm here with Deputy County Executive Ken Jenkins for our update on Westchester issues, including coronavirus and now the aftermath of Hurricane Ida and her impact here in Westchester County. This is the second report we're doing this week. We moved it up to the front end of the Labor Day weekend because next week, Monday, will be a federal holiday for Labor Day, and then we also begin the High Holy Days for all of our Jewish brothers and sisters with Rosh Hashanah. So we thought that it was both respectful as well as impactful to report today before we begin that weekend, and those who may be traveling or having guests in and not focused on some of these issues would have an idea of where we are. Our next report after this report will be a week from Monday. We'll go back to our normal Monday patterns, and that day is Monday, September 13th, and then we'll give you an update of where we stand there. When we talk about COVID, which will be the last part of our report, we'll give you an idea of the trend lines, and these are some of the things we'll be looking for over the next 10 days as we go from this report to the next report. Obviously, the major story in Westchester and the metropolitan area has been the presence of Hurricane Ida, which packed a surprising punch, more so than Hurricane Henri did. And we'd had much more discussion about Henri when it was en route to this area. I think we suffered in Hurricane Ida partially because of the impact that it had with the tremendous intensity of rain and the flooding and the loss of life, but also because we had our guard dropped a bit. We had the sense that we survived Henri. Henri was a hurricane that was coming out over water, gaining in intensity, and landfall in Rhode Island after thinking it was going to hit in Long Island, and we felt like we dodged a bullet. In fact, didn't seem like it was much of a hurricane in terms of its impact here. Hurricane Ida made landfall in New Orleans and to devastating impact, and then went inland over through a big swath of the United States. And our past practice has been when a hurricane goes over land, it reduces its power, reduces its impact. But Hurricane Ida from Wednesday on into the wee hours of the morning on Thursday put a tremendous amount of rain, nearly 10 inches of rain, which is well beyond what our normal systems can accommodate. And the most important thing that happened was that we lost the lives of Westchester residents and friends. We've talked a lot about COVID deaths, and there we number over 2,300 deaths spread out over a long period of time. But what makes the deaths that we mourn now for Hurricane Ida all the more poignant is they happened to the greater extent to people who, just like you and I, were merely traveling from one point to another, trying to get home on a night of a storm. And we talked a lot in the advanced prep about, stay out of your cars, don't be out if you don't have to be out. I myself happened to be out in the earlier part of the evening coming from White Plains to my home on the Sound Shore. And that is exactly what was happening to the couple from Rye Brook. They were going home from having been out that evening, and that's what happened to the rabbi who was coming from Muncie in Rockland County to his home in Mount Kisco. And the tragedy that struck happened in settings where you don't expect the end of days to arrive. On a highway that we all travel all the time, being on the Sawmill River Parkway is familiar to any of us who travel around Westchester County, the street Lincoln Avenue and Rye Brook Harrison, where we lost the couple. One is confirmed dead, the other's been missing now for a number of days. These are streets that I've traveled on, Ken's traveled on, we're accustomed to them, we know the roads, and it's hard to imagine when you're driving it on a sunny day or even a normal rainy day that this could be the last few moments of your life. So we grieve with the families of those individuals. We lost an individual in Mount Vernon. We are trying to get final information on a potential fifth victim of this, and we have police in White Plains trying to verify the circumstances of that individual's passage. We will, in due time, have that information released to the public. When that information is available, as always, is the proper thing to do is to inform the next of kin to make sure that they're aware before they turn on television to find out about it. But we may have a death toll in Westchester alone as high as 5 individuals. I trust that we won't find, now that we're a couple of days after the event, any more. But as I often say when I talk about COVID, and it matters here in every other situation, if it's only one person, but that person is a person you love, a person that means much to you, then it is a tragedy in and of itself. And whatever that tragedy is multiplied by the number of people, it's even more difficult to absorb. There are lessons to be learned from this crisis, which we'll talk about going forward. But for the immediate purposes, we've had now sunny weather over the last 24, 36 hours. We will continue to have that through the long Labor Day weekend. We will recoup from this experience, but it is a very devastating experience. And for those who have died, no matter what we do now, we can't bring them back. So let us mourn them. Let us show proper respect for their time when they were with us alive. Let us think of them and their families and remember them with as much kindness as we can. I want to highlight that this morning I spent time in both the city of Yonkers and in the village of Mamaroneck, along with other top elected officials, looking firsthand at some of the devastation that was wrought. The area of Yonkers, on the west side of Yonkers, an area that Ken has represented for many years in the county legislature, we saw the back of houses on Warburton Avenue that face out to the Hudson River that had tremendous collapse of the back part of their houses, and dirt and what have you that came down the side of a steep slope and covered the tracks of the Metro-North Hudson line. The Hudson line is not operating because of that incident and another one further up the line in Dobbs Ferry, so there are no trains running on that line, and it was sobering. The sense of really disrupting something and disrupting it forever, because those people who live in those houses will not be able to rebuild that which was lost as part of this situation. We were there with Governor Kathy Hochul, who was there along with State Senator Andrea Stewart-Cousins, who heads the State Senate. We had other elected officials, Mayor of Yonkers, Mike Spano, council members, Assemblyman Nader Sage, and all of us had a chance to look and see firsthand the damage. Then I was able to go over to Mamaroneck Village, which is an area that I've represented for a long time, with U.S. Senator Chuck Schumer, head of the United States Senate, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, and Governor Hochul. It's the first time to my memory that all three major elected officials were in one place in Westchester at the same time, observing and looking at the damage that was done in the village of Mamaroneck, along with Mayor Tom Murphy of Mamaroneck Village, members of the Board of Trustees, Catherine Parker, the county legislator, Steve Otis, the Assemblyman, Shelley Mayer, the state senator, all of us whom will have a role to play in the reconstruction of what happens there in the aftermath of the flooding. Mamaroneck Village and Rye City, Mount Kisco, many communities, Bronxville, parts of almost every community were affected by Hurricane Ida, and in each of these communities there is now a drying out and a rebuilding process that is going on now. The county government is trying to help in ways that are practical. We're working through the responsibility that we have for collection and disposal of garbage, to work with the municipalities, try to make things available on Saturday so they can clean some of the debris out and have it properly removed and sanitarily disposed of. We're also working to get our Beeline bus system back at 100% on all different streets. Some streets are still impassable. There are still some detour routes. I'm going to have Ken talk about some of the geography that's been affected by this and what that means for us as we go forward. Mamaroneck residents have suffered enough. Rye City residents, Yonkers residents, Mount Kisco residents, everywhere that we've seen this, we've seen it before. And it behooves now the federal government particularly to take a position of leadership and try to provide us with resources and the top level engineering strategies to be able to fix things so that we can deal with these things better, because they will come again. And when those incidents come again, if we are ill prepared, we will lose lives, we will lose properties, and the thing I'm most concerned is the loss of confidence that people have in government. People who just think that it's all a big game, that we treat it as a game, that it's about partisanship, and one level of government points to another level of government, and none of that has got any emotion or any sincerity behind it. And I've spent quite a bit of my life in public office. Ken has as well. So many other people we know that are good and caring people, and we can't afford for people to believe that. We have in our responsibilities fix things that were broken of a smaller magnitude. 2 pools in Sprain Ridge Park, Jackson Avenue in Yonkers, the collapsing Miller House, the North County Trailway. But when we talk about making ourselves hardened against climate change realities, it is a much bigger task. It's a task too big for the county government to do alone, or even the county and the state and the local governments together. We need the presence of the federal government, and that was part of what this was about. To have Senator Schumer, to have Senator Gillibrand here, to have Governor Hochul here, as well as local officials, to try to pull all those things together. We are getting a lot of inquiries about FEMA reimbursement. The Federal Emergency Management Agency, and their reimbursements. FEMA is here in Westchester today to do a preliminary damage assessment, to look at the areas that were affected directly by Hurricane Ida and try to calculate what types of circumstances we deal with, try to determine our eligibility for federal funds. The emergency declarations have been made. There will be public information about how an individual can file. And there is paperwork involved. You're going to have to be able to identify specifically what was impacted by Hurricane Ida, what were the losses to you and your local property. As you complete that information, the most important thing you can do right now, if you've been affected by this flood, is to take pictures to show exactly what's happened to your property. Keep receipts of anything. You can't wait. You have to be reimbursed. You can't wait to fix things. So as you go out and you buy certain things to help repair the damage that was done, keep copies of those receipts, keep copy of those pictures, any documentation that you have. Make sure you have that available. This will be asked of you at some point in time to back up your application for funding, and we hope that will be the case. There are businesses that have also been affected by this. The county will look at what resources we have available. As large a county as Westchester is, we do not have unlimited resources, but we will, through our Office of Economic Development, Bridget Gibbons, and the work that she does with her operations team, we'll look to see what we can do to help those businesses that have been affected by Hurricane Ida. Also, in terms of the aftermath, we are still dealing with power outages that exist. It's our understanding that the NYSEG service area, which is the northern tier of communities stretching across the top and slightly to the northeast of Westchester County, have all been restored. But we still have over 6,000 Con Ed customers that are out of power. The agency says that they expect to have the vast majority, 95% of the customers, will be reestablished with power by tonight, and that whatever the balance is, it'll be done by 3 p.m. tomorrow, Saturday. This is Con Edison's report to us. As we will, after this is over, we'll make an assessment. We'll look at some of the different changes that Con Edison committed to do and some of those things that were suggested in the United Westchester report, and determine how well all of this happens. We're also concerned about the loss of connectivity that involves our ability to use the internet, our ability to use the telephone, both Verizon and Altice provide that information, that assistance over and above the power source. Obviously, if power is out, those things can't function. But even when power is still in service, we may have connectivity issues with our different communication levels. So we're going to look at that and determine how well that can happen. Power has been restored at the Westchester County Center, which means we're opening it back up for vaccinations. It was closed all day yesterday, but it is reopened today, and it will be operational going forward. So if you have vaccination appointments, you can continue to honor them as we go forward. The utilities have established dry ice operations up until 8 p.m., or if we run out of product, they run out of product, in 2 locations. In Mamaroneck, there's a parking lot on Vine Street at Myrtle Boulevard, parking lot A. That will be a place for dry ice distribution. And in Yonkers, Andrus, Central Avenue at Arlington have both been established for that purpose. And dry ice obviously will help you keep some of your perishable items refrigerated sufficiently to get you through this period of time if you do not have power. So those 2 locations are available. I assume we're going to put this up on our website, and you can certainly find this out by being in touch with Con Edison. As we look ahead for where we are with all of our transportation, we do look forward to a weekend that is going to be dry, and hopefully a good Labor Day weekend, close out the summer. For all of our services, we did not close the Westchester County Airport, but many carriers did cancel flights. We're here reporting that rescheduling is underway, that there are flights that are still being there. Our rail transportation, we have service changes on the Harlem line, which goes through the center of the county, and on the New Haven line, which is the eastern diagonal in the county. The Harlem line has suspended, for the reasons I've just mentioned, their operations, and that, of course, is very impactful. They will let us know, the MTA will let us know when they're back in service, hopefully in time for Tuesday's normal commute, although because of Rosh Hashanah, we may not have the same demand on Tuesday that we would normally have. Our Beeline bus service is on or close to schedule, but there are some detours. If you're a regular Beeline bus user, check the website. They'll tell you what's happening there. And paratransit that we provide for those who are disabled is also on or close to schedule. We've got an extensive list of roadway issues, and so I've asked Ken Jenkins to try to provide us with some of that information. So Ken, kind of run us through some of the geography.
Thanks, George. As County Executive pointed out, there were significant roadway issues that happen all the time because our roadways have water bodies in their name, and that means that they're going to flood, but they're the normal set of circumstances that usually happened again. Right now, our road closures for the southbound Bronx River Parkway between exit 11, that's Ardsley Road, and exit 10, Harney Road in the town of Eastchester, is closed right now for major repairs. The big and good news is that the Bronx River Parkway will be reopened for commuter traffic by 3 p.m. today. So by the end of today's session, 3 p.m. today, Bronx River Parkway will be reopened after having had major repaving work done today, from this morning right up to 3 p.m. The north and southbound Route 100, that's the New York State Highway 100, between Legion Drive and Virginia Road in the town of Mount Pleasant, due to the emergency road work as well. That will be closed right now. It's closed. We do not have an estimated time when that's going to reopen. New York 120, between Kip Street and Douglas Road in the town of Newcastle. That's also closed due to an emergency road work, also due to the flooding. The Sawmill River Parkway between exit 9 and 287, so that's Executive Boulevard on the Sawmill, and 287, that remains closed due to the flooding. Northbound Sawmill River Parkway from exit 4, that's Cross County Parkway, to exit 22, also closed all the way through. So there are some portions of the Sawmill that are open. I live in the area of the Sawmill that's right by Tuckahoe Road, and those continue to be closed from the flooding. Northbound Sawmill River Parkway, the ramps from Palmer Road, which was open, that's why they were directing, our county police were directing folks off, that is also closed due to flooding. Continued patience throughout this particular process. The county executive in the briefing yesterday and continued on throughout the evening, the night before. The roadways are a challenge. Make sure you pack your patience with that. It takes a lot longer to get around and navigate than it normally does. And again, be patient to your Westchester neighbor. Thanks a lot, George.
Thanks very much, Ken. We will cover now some of the COVID information before we go to questions. Let me just add, Ken's point is well taken. As I traveled around the county today, I was in Yonkers, I was in Mamaroneck, and then back here. In that triangular route, the closure of certain roads required me to have a pretty good knowledge of Westchester roadways to know how I can get around these detours. And there's a lot of traffic out there. Once you take all the traffic that would be on the Sawmill River Parkway and you close the Sawmill River Parkway, it has to go someplace else, whether Route 9 or Sawmill River Road, which is 9A, or some other combination of roads, the Sprain, and to the extent that it can cover it. Bronx River Parkway is closed, so it will be difficult for you to negotiate where you want to go. You need to know your alternate routes. You also need to block a much greater amount of time to get from point A to point B. The road conditions will be clear, and the standing water has disappeared in most cases. But when this flood occurred, it brought a lot of dirt and mud onto roadways which are not fully clear. So you're not going to be able to drive at your maximum speed. You're going to have to, factor that into your time frame as you want to go from point A to point B. And I might add, this is Friday before a long weekend, so you can expect there's going to be a lot of traffic of people leaving Westchester County in the usual ways, going north on 684, going over 287, over the bridge, going up I-95 into New England. So be prepared for it, as Ken said. It's very important that you know what's closed, what's open, and plan your route. And that will get you through the area. I mean, not as quickly as you like, perhaps, but it'll get you there soundly. So let's talk a little bit about the COVID outbreak. There have been a couple of signs that are hopeful in the numbers that we've seen over the last week to 2 weeks. Just to go backwards to go forwards, we had a steady decline in the number of active cases and in the number of hospitalized individuals, and a flattening of the number of fatalities that took us from our peak in January, almost exactly 6 months, to the end of June, to the point where at the end of June we were all in some version of a celebratory mode that we might be really getting past this. The Delta variant now has had its impact, and its impact was felt week after week for about 7 weeks from the very end of June, all throughout the month of July and most of the month of August. But we want to point out that as we look at the numbers today, the most recent numbers I have are as of yesterday, Thursday, September 2nd. We're watching a certain amount of flattening of the increase in infections and a very slight decrease in hospitalizations. And while it's too soon to call it a trend, 2 weeks is not enough to be able to make that judgment. It is an encouraging sign. And just as we've been, very open when the numbers look bad, when there was an increase, and we said so, it's helpful to know that right now there's a certain amount of flattening that's going on. If that persists for the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and it's actually a trend, then we will reach what we hope will be a very good point. We don't know what's going to happen as we start to move indoors. We're not there on the third day of September. We don't know what happens when school starts. Most of the school districts will go back by next week, whether that will be a contributory factor or not. We know that there are a lot of programs that are still going to be happening in communities in September, and although people are double vaxxed, and even if they're wearing masks, we don't know what the level of contagion would be. But it is important to say, as of yesterday, we had 2,659 active cases of coronavirus. The week before that, we had 2,712. That's not a big difference. We had 70 some odd cases, but it's slightly lower than it was a week ago. And if you go back 2 weeks ago, it's almost exactly the same number. 2,654 2 weeks ago, 2,659 yesterday. So that's in essence a number that rose and then has slightly dipped. If that trend line continues, that is very good news, because right now we're in the vicinity of 2,800 active cases. When we were at peak status twice before, we exceeded 10, 11, almost 12,000 active cases. So if we're getting to a point where short of 3,000 active cases, we're flattening out, that's an encouraging sign. I certainly think the number of cases we have is directly proportionate to the amount of vaccinations we have, and we are a highly vaccinated county when you compare us to other counties elsewhere, certainly the nation, if not in our own backyard. We're also encouraged slightly by the number of people who are hospitalized. That number over the last 4 days has gone down, and it had gone up on a steady line from single digits up to triple digits. We had broken 100 earlier last week with 105 people hospitalized, and then now that number started to come down a bit from our peak night of 110 hospitalizations. We're down 10%, which is not a lot. Gets us down to 99 individuals. We've got a long way to go, but that is a good sign, and it's going along with the flattening out of the active cases. So we hope those two things correlate and are good news. We have had some additional fatalities, a little bit more than we had hoped. We've lost 10 people over the last 2 weeks. We have gone through a month or two without having anything like that many fatalities, but we don't know how to interpret it, whether how much it's just certain individuals, people have been hanging on for a long time. We lost an individual in the county jail who was of a certain age, not a young man, but the issues will come out. It's the first COVID death we've had in the county jail. The individual did not choose to get vaccinated, was given the option to be vaccinated, chose not to be vaccinated, contracted COVID, and now has had a bit of a long period of time, a few weeks of infection, becoming very serious, trying to treat it at that level of seriousness. Once you reach a certain point of seriousness, you have gone past the point at which a vaccination will help. You've gone past the point at which antibodies that can be delivered to you in one fashion or another can be helpful to you, and we lost him. And we would prefer to let that story be a tragedy about the individual and the loved ones, but also to be a cautionary tale for other people. Everyone has their own philosophy. I have not gone overboard trying to argue philosophy with people who hold a different philosophy, but the facts are pretty clear that this individual was old enough to be in a target zone, chose not to take the vaccination, contracted COVID, contracted seriously enough, and lost his life in his early 50s. And that is far too young for what is possible if you can fight it off and go forward. On the fatality side, we have 2,311 fatalities. We have been pretty static as a percentage of number of fatalities, a little under 2% fatal, and our hospitalization numbers are a little under 4% of all people that have contracted COVID who are hospitalized, because we have well over 2,500 beds in Westchester County. To have 100 people hospitalized doesn't come anywhere near taxing our health system, which is what you're seeing happening in Florida, in Texas, and a number of other states where there's no mask requirement, no vaccination requirement, and not even the requirements, not even a dialogue that is supportive of masking or vaccination. The dialogue in those states are, we don't do this, that's not us, we're not doing it. And we hope that they can still fight their way through this disease, but the tools that we're given to fight it are very limited. You know, we have masking, don't want to mask, social distancing, we don't want to social distance, shut down of interactions of people, we don't shut anything down. We don't want to shut anything down either. I don't personally prefer to wear the mask. I've said that about 1,000 times. But the question of what's prudent, and then what you can accept, you know, as part of your personal behavior and modification. We have, by the state standard, vaccinated almost exactly 700,000 people in Westchester County. Now, the number that the state continues to show in their tracker is against a population of those 18 years of age and older. So we're not counting people under the age of 18. Under the age of 12, they're not eligible for vaccination, so you almost have to take them out of the inventory, because you can't count as unvaccinated people that couldn't be vaccinated. But 18 population and older with at least one vaccine dose, based on our old numbers, put us in just about 85% vaccinated. That number will be a little lower with a slightly larger base of those who are 18 years and older. And we're going to discuss about how we implement a change in that. We really don't want to jump ahead of the tracker from the state. We rely on those numbers because those are seen as the official numbers, not necessarily the numbers that we extrapolate from. But in any event, we're certainly around the 80% range, and we've also gotten many, not all, of our county departments 80% or higher. A number of departments above 80%, a couple above 90, and we have 10 different components of county government that have reached 100% vaccination. And we've done it without mandating it, but we have done it by working with people, by bringing the message to them, trying to overcome objections, and doing the information job that we think will help us. Recently, the FDA approval of the Pfizer vaccine helps us. I believe it's Pfizer that we distribute at the county center. So that hopefully will be something that leads us in the right direction. But nonetheless, our vaccination numbers are considered high compared to our neighboring counties, and we will continue that emphasis as we go forward. We also await news, I don't know when it'll come, as to whether or not third booster shots will be authorized. I think what I've heard, probably what you've heard, is that they would like to do it for people who have been double vaxxed at a point that's at least eight months after their second dose. I'm not quite sure how they handle the Johnson & Johnson dose, single dose, but if it's 8 months afterwards, then since our first vaccinations came in January, we are now in a target zone to be able to do that. But it hasn't yet been authorized, and we'll wait to see what happens. If that does happen, then the Westchester County Center is going to continue to be a vaccination center for the foreseeable future. You may recall, as a matter of public policy, we worked very hard to have our Section 1 high school basketball championships go into the county center. And we also made decisions about other events that we didn't want to see in the county center that we thought was bad public policy. All of that now is pushed off to the side, because right now that facility has been one of the most effective and efficient centers for vaccinating all across New York State. And it will remain in that capacity. We got back Glen Island Park and Glen Island Beach to the benefit of the people that like to use it as a recreational facility, but the county center is probably going to have continued responsibilities as a venue for vaccinations, particularly when the booster shot is authorized. That means 700,000 people have to go through that building or some building to get the booster shot, and then whatever cohort of younger people who are eligible to do it, and some of that may happen. We're getting close to going back to school. We're working with the school districts to help them implement their own individual plans. We have been a partner to the school districts on testing, certainly, and on vaccinations. We intend to continue to do that. The decisions that will affect the school district will be made by the school district, the board, school board, superintendent, and it will be run past the state, which is the regulatory authority over school districts. We, the county, sitting over here, will be as helpful as we can so that you your kids can get back to school, that they can be safe in that context. With that, we've exhausted the topics we wanted to cover for the moment. We don't have any questions from the press at this stage of the game, so we'll invite any member of the press that may be picking this up as a live feed to reach out to Catherine Chaffee, our Director of Communications. She's at 995-2932, and she'll be happy to try to connect you for any specific questions of things that are happening. As I mentioned previously, our next report to you will be a week from Monday, on Monday, September 13th. If there's a reason to break into your peace and quiet prior to that, we will do so. But for the time being, this is where we stand as we enter Labor Day weekend. We hope you have a safe and healthy Labor Day weekend. Keep in mind, this is the last weekend for many of our outdoor recreations. Playland Amusement Park is open this weekend, closes on Labor Day at the end of the day. Our 4 pools, Saxon Woods, Wilson Woods, Tibbetts Brook, and Sprain Ridge, all of those pool complexes are working through the weekend. They close on Monday at the end of Labor Day. And then also our 3 beaches, Glen Island, Playland, and Croton Point Park, open, and then they close at the end. So we'll be out of our summer mode come the evening of Monday, September 6th. But as we're speaking today, on Friday the 3rd, you still have time to take advantage of it. The weekend weather should be advantageous, so go to the pool, the beach if you like, go to Playland if you'd like. Bicycle Sunday will not occur this weekend since it is Labor Day weekend, but it will resume next weekend and will continue through the remaining weekends of September and through October. So Bicycle Sunday will continue on, and of course our golf courses and other parks continue to be open. We'll give you more information about that as you go along. Let me also wish all of our Jewish brothers and sisters Lashana Tovah, which represents a happy and a sweet new year, which will begin at sundown on Monday the 6th. The beginning of Rosh Hashanah, the high holy days that will take our Jewish brothers and sisters through the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, which will be in the following week. But we wish all of our brothers and sisters, whatever your faith is, a good and hopeful weekend. And I'll close as I began. Please find a moment of time in your thinking, and if you pray in your prayers, for those people that we lost this week through this tragedy of Hurricane Ida, as well as those we've lost through COVID. These were people who are with us as brothers and sisters, and now they've left us, as we will in due time leave. So let us show them the respect that they deserve with a kind thought. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive. Thank you for watching. Have a good day and a good weekend, and we'll see you in a week.